Hi, it's Wednesday. That means it's time for another video edition of Widower Wednesday. I'm Abel Keogh, author of Dating a Widower, and today we're going to discuss what a widower means when he says certain things. So we're going to take certain phrases or things that a widower might say to a woman he's dating or a woman he's married to, and we're going to kind of interpret it. I'm going to interpret them for you. I'm going to tell you what he's really saying. A lot of them are clear cut. A few aren't. A few aren't so clear cut. But we're going to just kind of talk about if a widower says certain things, you can kind of get an idea of what he really means and what he's saying. Now, the idea for this video came from a post in my Dating a Widower Facebook group. By the way, go to Facebook, search for Dating a Widower if you want to join. But someone posted something that their widower said and was trying to interpret it and trying to say, well, what does he mean when he says this? And I thought that'd be a good post for a video. And so what I did is I went on to the group and I posted and asked the women on the group, I said, well, what are some things that your widower says that confuse you or you want to know what they mean? And so I got tons of responses here. Going to do a couple of videos off it. So, but anyway, without further ado, we're going to go over a lot of the responses that people want to know what a widower said. And by the way, great responses, uh, great, great quotes from, or great sayings, I guess, from widowers that need to be interpreted here. So kudos to all of you out there who contributed. I much appreciate it. And I hope that this can be helpful for any of those out there that are in relationships with widowers as well. All right, so we're going to start off with some basic ones. This is the one, by the way, I get the most questions on. So what does a widower mean when he says, I love you? I know that might kind of seem, well, it means he loves you, right? Well, maybe it means he loves you. It really only, again, one of the widower psychology things I try to teach over and over again is that uh, men express their feelings through their actions. Okay, so widowers, a lot of them have a hole in their hearts that they're trying to fill, and they will say anything to you, right? They want the companionship, they want a relationship. Again, they're hungry for that, so they'll say they love you even if they don't really love you. And sadly, I have done that. For those of you who have read Room for Two, you understand that context. But so, if a widower says he loves you, he only loves you if his actions are backing up his words. So if he says he loves you and he's making you number one, he's whatever introducing you to friends and family, he's doing his best. He's not perfect, okay? We're not expecting perfection here, but if he's doing his best or you feel he's doing his best, that his actions are showing that he loves you, then it means he loves you. If his actions are not backing that up, then he's just using it as a way to keep you on. He'll say he loves you and not true. So, if you feel like you're a third wheel to a ghost, right? That the late wife is number one, if he's hiding you from friends and family, if you feel like you're doing all the heavy lifting in the relationship, even if he says he loves you, he doesn't really mean he loves you. So just remember, when it comes to I love you, it's not the words that are important, it's the widower's actions. Um, and that's the way you can tell whether or not he's serious about saying I love you or not. So kind of the opposite of that, this is probably the second most question I get when it comes to interpreting what a widower says. Well, it's when he hasn't said I love you yet. So he can either, maybe he says I like you, or he's not really committing. It could, again, he's not saying the words I love you. Initially my response is going to be, it's probably going back to his actions. What do his actions say? Do his actions say that he loves you or not? Again, a lot of guys, they aren't good at sharing their feelings. They just aren't, and maybe it's the way they were brought up. Maybe a lot of it has to do with the relationship with the late wife and how they handled things with her. And so maybe the late wife didn't expect it, so he doesn't know how to do it. There could be lots of reasons. So it's not necessarily a red flag if he doesn't say it. It's more of a red flag if he's not saying it and he's not showing you through actions that he loves you. So now I will say that most men will eventually say it again. If you're whatever, maybe 2 months into a relationship and you love him, and maybe it's a little too, maybe he's still kind of struggling with separating his feelings for you and the feelings he has for the late wife. So kind of maybe also consider how long it's been since you guys have been dating. Now, if it's been a long time, we're talking maybe 9 months, a year or more, and he hasn't said it. I think most guys will eventually say it. But again, if it's early on, again, pay attention to how he's acting more than what he's actually saying. You'll probably have a good idea if he loves you or not. And then, part of this is getting in tune with the widower's personality. What kind of personality does he have? Is he shy and reserved and quiet? Or is he, someone who doesn't have a hard time expressing his feelings? Take that to consideration. But if you go by his actions, 99% of the time, you're not going to go wrong by that, how he really feels. All right. So what do you do now if a widower says, I'm grieving? Well, I would take him at his word. If a man says he's grieving, he's probably still grieving. What I interpret that as is that he's not ready for a serious relationship at this time. And the best thing you can do, and the best thing to, I guess, keep in mind is that you can't help his grief. You can't stop him from grieving, right? I mean, you can be your wonderful self. You can be a reason for him to move on and to stop grieving. But there's nothing really you can do. You can't say anything or do anything that's going to make him say, I'm done grieving or I'm moving on. That's an internal struggle he has to have. So generally when widowers say, I'm still grieving, I would take them at their word, and that's probably a good chance for you to maybe take a step back and evaluate the relationship and say, well, if you need some more time, I want to go out and start dating again, and why don't you call me when you're done grieving? And I know that sounds kind of harsh or like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? But it's kind of good for a widower to have that choice. The widower needs to make a choice. Does he want to grieve or does he want to start a new relationship? And sometimes forcing him to kind of confront his own words and say, well, if you're still grieving, maybe we should stop dating. If you say something like that, maybe we should stop spending time together. It forces the widower inside his head to say, well, what do I value more? Do I value my grieving more? Or do I value my relationship more? And therefore, again, by his actions, you can kind of figure out what's really important to him. But, if he says he's grieving, I take him at his word, and I think it's a good chance to maybe take a step back from the relationship and initiate a conversation with him about what that means, and maybe, say, well, call me when you're done grieving, because grieving people do not make good dating companions, widower or anyone else. If they're consumed in grief, grief is a very internal thing. It's a very, I use the word selfish, but that's not the right word. It's a very personal, and it's where you're looking inside of you, and people who are looking inside, they're not ready to look outside and really share their love with other people. So there's that. All right, someone else wrote, I don't like to make concrete plans or any plans, or I don't know what to do with my life. So again, I didn't have a lot of context in that, but I'm assuming he doesn't like to make plans in the sense of where's this relationship going? Where does he see a future with you? And he's like, well, I don't like to make concrete plans. Well, then that's really what he's saying, is that he's not looking for a long-term relationship. That's a really good indicator, again, assuming that the context here is you're talking about maybe a future together or getting married or something like that. It means that he'll eventually end things either when he's tired of you or when someone better comes along. And so if a widower is unable to articulate a future with you, there's a reason for that, and that's because he probably doesn't see one. Now, it's one thing to say that, 30 days into a relationship, where do you see this relationship going? Oh my gosh, it's been 30 days, I don't know, or, but, if someone's saying that 4, 5, 6 months, a year into it, then they're putting you off. And, again, and actually that pairs right with the next phrase I got here. Says, I see a future, I'm just not ready yet. Now, see, again, I would say that men, if they see a future, they will articulate it. And he says, I see a future, I'm just not ready yet. I say BS. I call BS on that. He's putting you off. If he sees a future, widowers who are ready to move on, men who are serious about a relationship, they'll figure out a way to make themselves ready. When he says, I think the key word of that is, I'm not just ready yet. And, then the thing is, well, when are you going to be ready? What specifically has to happen in order for you to be ready? And I think if you ask that question as a follow-up question, so he says, I'm not ready yet. I see a future, but I'm not ready yet. Well, what does that mean? What does it mean you're not ready yet? What has to happen for you to be ready? And I think you'll find out that most widowers will stumble over that answer because what they really mean is they don't see a future with you, and that's really what they're saying. That's honestly what they're saying, because most men, if they're ready for a relationship, like I could see, like when Julie and I were dating, this was early on before Julie was even ready for anything. I could totally see a future with a Julie. And I never told Julie that I wasn't ready. I told her a lot of times that, I want to spend my life with you. I can see us getting married and doing stuff like that. And early on when we were dating, was I initially ready at that time? No, I wasn't ready, but I never told Julie I wasn't ready. I was working out in my mind, well, how can I get ready? What are some things that I can do in order that, we can have this relationship? So if he says he's not ready yet, push for specifics, and my guess is he'll stumble over that answer. He won't have an answer for that. Like, it's one thing if he says, I'm not ready yet. Well, what needs to happen? I need to scatter the ashes. Okay. Oh, okay. Well, there we go. Okay. Well, when are you going to scatter her ashes? Again, it's about getting widowers and men who are ready to move on will get really specific about their plans. If they're not ready and they're trying to push you off or, mess around with you, they can't get specific. So use that if somebody says that they're not ready for you yet. All right, one more for this video, and then we'll do some more in part 2. So the last one is it's something. So it says, let's build up the foundation of our relationship first before we tell everyone that we're together. Or along those lines, they're basically saying the same thing. I tell the late wife's family about you, but I don't want to hurt them. All right, so so 2 thoughts on this. One is that they care more about the feelings of friends and family or the late wife's family or whoever than they do about you. So if that's not a red flag right there, I don't know what is. Now, I understand that it's hard sometimes to tell people, and so it's one thing to say that, hey, it's hard to, this is a hard thing I've got to do. Yeah, it's a hard thing you've got to do, to tell people that you're dating again and maybe you're in a serious relationship. I get that. I've been there. I've done that. Yeah, it's a hard thing to do, but it's different than saying this is a hard thing to do than saying I don't want to hurt them by telling them about you, or let's wait a while till we tell people. Now, those are huge red flags. And again, widowers who are ready to move on, again, not that it's not easy for them, but they'll figure out a way to do it. They won't tell you that they want to keep you a secret. Again, if you know my dating story, I wanted to keep my long distance relationship with Phoenix a secret, not because she wasn't a wonderful person, but mostly because I wasn't sure about the relationship with Julie. I wanted to shout that relationship from the housetops. I didn't care what people thought. I just wanted to spend my life with Julie. So again, it's coming back to his actions there. What are the widower's actions saying? That he doesn't want to tell people about you. Well, what he's, if he's not willing to go out there and do it and show people and tell people that, and do something. An important thing, if he wants to keep you a secret, total red flag. Guy is not ready. Run, do not walk away from this relationship. If he's going to value the opinions of friends and family over you, do you really want to spend the rest of your life with someone who does that, who won't put you first? Because if he's going to marry you, you should be the number one person in his life over everybody else, flat out. And if he's putting especially the feelings of, I can understand, I don't know how my kids are. Kids are a little bit different, but especially, again, in these reactions, it's, I don't know, let's build a foundation. Let's not tell friends and family right now. I don't want to hurt them. No, BS. He's not ready. Get away from the relationship as fast as possible. Anyway, that's it for this edition of Widower Wednesday. This is part 1 of what does a widower mean when he says. I'll post part 2 next week, and I got a whole bunch more things that we can go over. If you have a comment, if you have something that your widower is telling you that you want to interpret, leave it down in the comments below. Also, don't forget to subscribe if you want updates when I post a new Widower Wednesday video. I'm Abel Keogh. I'm author of Dating a Widower, and I will see you next Wednesday.